Three, two, one. Welcome to the Lightforge podcast. This is Adwikta.
This is Merps. Hope you guys are having a good week, good summer. We're close to summer now. It's getting pretty hot.
Yeah. You think it's getting pretty hot. I'm farther down south here. It is. It's comfortable hot though. You know, like it's hot, but it's like good weather hot. We're not at the stage yet where it's like, oh, it's too hot to exist outside, even in the shade.
Yeah. And for those of you wondering why I'm wearing a hoodie, it's because we have the AC on. You got to think of the chinchillas. So yes, I understand. It is getting hotter, but I am actually still wearing a hoodie.
So one of the things, I don't know if you guys know, but I had like shortness of breath and had to cancel a stream like two weeks ago. And I realized one of the reasons may be because I'm not actually circulating the air in my attic, which has muggy air to begin with because it's just still air. And it stopped circulating because we used to have the heat on. And then we shut the heat off because it's too warm. But then I never had a fan on or anything, so the air was just like not moving, and there probably wasn't a lot of oxygen up here.
Interesting. Very interesting. Not that interesting.
That's what the doctor said, because they ran a
Uh-huh.
bunch of tests and they're like, nothing's wrong with you. And I'm like, okay, that's what I thought. And they're like, but we're gonna try to give you some helpful advice that you can get on YouTube. And I'm like, okay, thank you for taking my $5,000.
Very nice. Okay. Let's talk about some Hearthstone. Not any changes to Arena this week, although we do have some Arena stuff to talk about. And then, of course, we have the big Battlegrounds patch on Tuesday we need to talk about with a huge content update.
Yeah. So with the Battleground stuff, I mean, you'll see soon enough, right? Like, you're gonna watch this, you're gonna listen to this podcast or watch it probably on Monday, unless you're live here right now. And then on Tuesday, we already have the new Quillboars that you can come into game with. I'm gonna kick this off with like a very short blurb on the arena, which is just that we should have talked about it before, but honestly, it's just like I didn't play the bad classes. When an update happens, I normally start with the good classes and work my way down. And so I just hadn't played enough since the macro adjust, since the adjustment patch happened to get down to the bad classes. And I finally worked my way down to the bad classes this week. They're terrible. They are like unplayably bad. So whereas I thought the balance was okay, because I'm like, you know what, Rogue and Druid aren't really that oppressive. Like, you can play any class and then you see what the meta's like, right? The meta just isn't all that oppressive right now, which is nice. And Rogue is at 54.6. Druid fell down to 53.6. I don't think Druid's any less powerful than people thought before. I think just easier to play than Rogue, and so more players are playing Druid now that they know the Druid is powerful, and that's like dragging the win rates down. Whereas before, probably only the people who were like really checking HS replay were like, you know, hardcore selecting Druids. But anyway, there's like a good 1% difference now between Rogue and Druid, and it's held that way for the last few days. So that may be here to stay. But no changes in opinion on Rogue and Druid and how almost problematic but not quite they are. Shaman's coming in at 51.5%, pretty good class. Warlock and Warrior at a little above 50%. Hunter and Mage at 48%. We're playing Hunter later today. Totally still like playable classes. But after Mage, the next few classes, you really feel it. Like, if you're playing a class that's 2.5% below average, below 50% win rate, it doesn't seem like a lot, but you're using the class for every single match. Whereas you're going to face Rogues and Druids maybe like every third match. Maybe a little more than every third match. So you're feeling the badness of a class a lot more than you feel the goodness of your opponents when they're OP, right? Like, if it gets OP enough and they're selected all the time, you'll feel it more when you get to like high win rates. Not high win rate, but like a high win on a particular run. But overall, your gaming experience isn't as affected as the bad classes if you select them. And these classes are really bad right now. Priest is at 46.9%, but that's kind of it's kind of a fake percentage, because it's Priest. You're either going to hit your cards or you're not. And if you hit your cards, you're totally fine. You're better than Mage, better than Hunter. You're in that like Warrior Warlock zone, if not better. But if you don't hit your cards, it's a totally trash class, like barely playable. Paladin's at 46%. Demon Hunters that fit 45.8%, those classes are not playable right now. Like, I'm trying to remember the last time I lost to a Paladin. It's just, it doesn't. I face a decent amount of Paladins because people like playing Paladins, but they're so bad right now. And the Demon Hunters are actually worse. I played a couple Demon Hunters just because there was a. I'm trying to get my Demon Hunter wins up so I can get that Golden Demon Hunter, which I don't even have yet. And so I skew Demon Hunter whenever I'm trying to like play up a certain category. And they were just like such bad experiences. Like the decks look bad, but not terrible. And then you get in the game and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. My opponents can do things and I can't. That's right. I'm a 45.8% win rate class. And it's Demon Hunter. There's some decisions to be made, but for the most part, it's not like when it's powerful, it's super powered for a reason. And when it's not powerful, it's hard to make work for a reason. You're just very vulnerable no matter what you do. Yeah, so just wanted to throw a flag up in case people are playing. They're like, oh, I have a different experience in the meta than other people. Why? Well, are you playing any of these 3 classes? If you are, this meta's terrible for you. Like, don't touch these classes. Just until they do an adjustment, which from the patch notes of the next patch, it doesn't look like they're touching the arena, but I hope they do. Because right now, it's not like the most balanced thing, even at the top. It's fine, but improvements could be made. And at the bottom, you have 2.5 classes that are like just no one should ever pick them. They've gone beyond the realm of like playability.
Yes, it's always been like this ever since they've implemented these macro adjusts. The bad classes feel really bad. I think by now people are more used to. Demon Hunter being pretty bad because that's actually been. It's like, yes, if you just take the beginning of the meta or this meta, Demon Hunters were really good, but for quite a while before that, what was your memory of Demon Hunter if you've just been playing Arena consistently? It's been a while since Demon Hunter, before the implementation of the newest patch. The newest expansion was really bad, and you just feel helpless. You also feel bored, and it's kind of been like that for a lot of whatever class Blizzard chooses to be bad. It's not just enough for it to be bad; it's boring because you don't get enough class cards.
Mm-hmm.
So really, nothing new. But this is kind of the good old Blizzard way of balancing. There's like memes and stuff about it where Blizzard's way of balancing is it's not ensuring that these 2 fighters have the exact same size sword. There's one person with a giant sword and one person with like a little wooden sword, and their idea of balance is after 30 seconds you guys switch.
Yeah, I mean, Demon Hunters right now, it's not like they don't get class cards. They just don't get their good class cards, which is fine, because Demon Hunters really have 2 types of cards. They have cards that are totally busted, and cards that are okay, but is way worse than other people's class cards. So you're going to get like a decent amount of offering for Demon Hunters on your class cards. They're just all the okay cards. And you'll have like 1 bomb in your deck or something. And that's not enough in this meta by a long shot. And it's hard to balance, right? Like when you have a class that just has overpowered cards, what are you going to do, right? It's bad if they exist. It's also bad, but not quite as bad if you just make them suck. So Blizzard just kind of makes them suck.
Yeah. All right. Should we talk about what everyone is talking about with the arena?
Yes. Let's move on to the big topic. Like, I thought the big topic was going to be Quillboars, but turns out we have a second big topic, and that is the MMR system in the arena. Not the current arena, but where Blizzard's going with it. So if you've been listening to the Lightforge podcast or you generally follow the arena, you know that apparently Ixar himself, personally, has been, and Ixar's a dev, like one of the head devs, if not the senior dev, I don't know, but one of the most senior devs in Hearthstone right now, has been playing personally arena, like a lot of arena, for months. And he like came out of the closet on it like a month ago or something. And we were like, oh, really? Ixar's playing that much arena? Like, he's always played some arena, but by far not the majority of his gameplay, nor the amount that he's been like describing that he's done in the last few months. And so Ixar having done that, we're like, oh, something's coming, right? Like, you don't have one of your senior designers play this game mode no one cares about that you've officially said you weren't going to do anything about in 2020, and you did nothing in 2020 about, unless you're going to do something about it. Like, not, I don't mean soon, as in the results are going to come out soon, but you're going to like sign off on whatever changes are going to get made somewhat soon. So that's happening. And over the course of last week, XR made a couple of comments and tweets that talk about the arena. And this is always very interesting because it shows you the insight into the minds of the devs. And here are his 2 tweets. I'm going to read them verbatim. Accessibility. How can we change matchmaking in a way... and so this is about the upcoming changes in arena. Accessibility. How can we change matchmaking in a way that won't make the heads of top arena players explode? Right now, in a no-skill-based matchmaking system, it's destined to be a mode that's inaccessible for new players. Next tweet. We'd have to change the reward structure in some way so you aren't punished for getting better. But the days of good players winning 70% plus of their games is going to have to end if we want the mode to have long-term success. That will be hard to swallow. And this kind of piggybacks on what Ixart said before when he was talking about playing the arena, which is that they're looking at these structural changes to the arena, and one thing that keeps coming back to it is how do they make this change so that they can attract new players into this game mode without making all the old players leave.
Yeah. Okay. Should we talk about kind of Arena HS's initial?
Yeah, you can bring the podcast listeners up to speed on how Arena HS has reacted to it. It's been a quick reaction, and this is 100+ upvoted post on Arena HS, which is an insanely large amount for Arena HS.
Yeah, this is obviously something at the very core of what the Arena community thinks about. It's the identity of the Arena. It's not anything new because floating around the idea of MMR and Arena has been going on for quite a while, whether it's been from Blizzard or it's been from the community itself. Because we know that Arena in its current stage is fine. It's still enjoyed by many people, but it does need to be changed. The swift reaction from Arena HS has been that they don't love the idea of MMR.
Oh yeah, they just don't love it. That's
yeah,
it.
They don't love it. It hasn't been perceived very, very well.
You know, like when you go to the bathroom and do a number 2, you don't love what comes out. I think that's what I'm getting from the reaction here.
Some people enjoy their bowel movements.
I think people enjoy more the process of it coming out, or just the comparison of the before and after and how you feel. I don't think that many people enjoy the product.
This is quite the analogy. Anyways, to sum up a couple of things, a couple of comments that were upvoted pretty highly. One of the reasons that people don't like MMR is because if you do MMR, then the deck quality matters more. Because if you just have very good players facing each other, starting from like 0-0, well, you don't get that opportunity to face someone with a better deck, but because they're a worse player, now you get to go higher. Now, starting from 0-0, you are facing other infinite players, and wow, deck quality matters a lot. And as we've talked about from the beginning,
there's 2 things that determine your wins in the arena. Well, 3 things that determine your wins in the arena: luck, deck, and skill. Right? So you're evening out the skill a little bit, so that obviously makes luck more important and your deck more important, which has an element of skill, but also an element of luck.
Yeah. So a lot of people are just saying like, okay, this doesn't work. And if it were to work, if you were going to introduce MMR into the system in some capacity, you have to change the payout. So there's different factions of people who have different feelings about this as well. I would say, there's one segment of people that say, okay, we might be able to do some sort of MMR thing, but you got to change the payout, which I think basically everyone would agree with, even Blizzard, hopefully. I have no idea. And there's a segment of people who believe that a lack of MMR and just being paired with people who are the same record, that is one of the pillars of Arena. That is one of the fundamental kind of building blocks of Arena. And changing that would mean, yeah, you're changing the game, but then it's not exactly Arena. I don't want to put like words into Dreads' mouth, but I know he tweeted recently about it, and I know for him, it's more within the core. It's more of a foundational pillar of the Arena than just, okay, fine, we can change it, but then you have to change the payout structure.
Yeah, that's what's so elegant about Arena, right? To a lot of players. This is also not like a game mode. I mean, the specific mechanically is a game mode Hearthstone created, but like MTG, and we're going to talk about MTG here because MTG has done this. But MTG has a sealed mode and a draft mode. And that was always like, why? Why do you do that? Because it's fundamental, because it's elegant. Because it's very easy for people to understand, oh, we crack open a bunch of packs, and that's the packs we use, and then we deck build with it, and then we play with it, right? Done, right? What do you do in Arena? Oh, you draft 30 cards, and then that's your deck, and then you play with it. Done. The foundational assumption of what we're used to up to this point, that doesn't mean it can't change, but the elegant part of it includes just nothing else. Anytime you add more stuff to it, you make it less elegant, you make it more difficult to understand, you make it, to use Blizzard parlance, you make it more confusing to the player. So, adding an MMR system is an additional layer. It doesn't just change who you're matched with, or, I mean, it does change just who you're matched with, but in changing who you're matched with, it changes the entire game. It changes how you draft. It changes how you play. You are playing a different game after you add that in. And so a lot of players, existing players in the Arena, would prefer that not to be in. Now, there's a lot of players, and sometimes existing players in Arena just don't like change. Like, they're playing the game mode for a reason, right? They like it, like, for the most part, or else you wouldn't play it. So you already have this bias that's built in. But a lot of Arena players can agree on certain changes. This is just a little too foundational, right? Like, whenever someone pitches, draft 35 cards and then build a deck with 30, everyone's on board. Like, 80% plus of Arena players are on board with that. Because it's a way of increasing skill, of mitigating RNG. On the other hand, you go to changes like MMR, for example, you get like this hugely negative reaction, and then there's some that the community is like honestly split about, right? Like, I think a lot of people in the community really want buckets back, even if they're imperfect, and a lot of other people are like, thank God we don't have buckets anymore. That was like a travesty, right? Where you just end up making the same picks over and over again because Blizzard is not putting them in the right buckets, and or sometimes you just can't put them in the right buckets because there's always going to be a worse card in each bucket. But on the other hand, it enables certain things like Merps Hunter, right, which is a lot harder to do now. In a bucket system, you have more diversity of decks because you have, like, there's arguments, right? So you have some, like, controversial ideas, you have some, like, ideas everyone hates, and then you have some ideas everyone loves. This is an idea everyone who currently plays Arena, who care enough about the Arena to be on, a Reddit about it, at least, almost universally hates. Not universally, but almost universally dislikes. Not just Dreads.
Yes. So that's where we're at. We know that Arena has to be changed somehow if we want the game mode to not die. Because currently, as it stands, Arena is not gaining players or
I don't know. I think
players
it's gaining players. I keep saying this. I think in the last 9 months, Arena has gained players. I feel like there's a legit resurgence of the Arena. Not a ton, right? But I feel like it went from dying to like
really coming. Like, here's the thing. Constructed is at a pretty low point, or was. BGs has been like, they've really dropped the ball with BGs. But that's about to change. And at the end of the day, it's just about like how much effort is being expended on a certain mode, right? And that's the thing with Arena.
Do we want to talk about duels, or is that not a mode? There's no duels. I think we have to talk about duels too, anyway.
Putting quite a lot of work into, and they're continuing to put a decent amount of work into duels. Like, they changed a very problematic treasure, the Paladin treasure. So they keep putting work into that. And then, of course, we have mercenaries coming up, which I'm waiting to hear news about that.
Waiting to hear what that game mode actually is, because apparently
Yeah.
there's no consensus on even that.
Yes. But yeah, like you can tell where their priorities are in terms of kind of what they're focusing on, and arena is not it. So
Mhm.
I think at this point they're just gathering ideas on how to either make arena like arena 2.0, right?
Right.
As in, yes, it's still arena, but it's arena 2.0, or just have new limited mode that's basically arena 2.0, but they decide to like put a new name on it.
Mhm.
But something drastic has to kind of change. So I'm hoping that it'll be something that satisfies everyone's craving for limited and perhaps, for limited game modes.
Because make no mistake, there is no actual limited game mode in Hearthstone besides Arena. Battlegrounds is something totally different, and Duels is something totally different, all with like its own cards and like whatever stuff. There's no sealed format in Hearthstone. There's just this draft format that's like honestly a pretty lame simplified draft format. I mean, easy to access, right? But like not terribly deep. And that is Arena. And Hearthstone's been around for a ton, like a really long time now. The Hearthstone like world champion is 15 years old and first started playing Hearthstone at age 7, I think, or 8 or something. Gabby. That's like when I first read that, I was like, oh yeah, so a kid plays and then said, wait, hold on, 7, 8, and the kid's 15 now. Then I like think back to it. I'm like, you know what? That's just kind of how long Hearthstone's been around. So congrats. But also we're old and we've been playing this game for a freaking long time, and Blizzard's been developing this game for a freaking long time without adding another limited mode or really doing much to the arena. That's where it is. Okay. One thing that I want to be that I really hope doesn't happen is that they launch a new limited game mode right now. At least not unless they launch it with a lot of fanfare. Like, if you're going to launch a new limited game mode, you need to devote a lot of resources to it. Like, duels level resources, but, like, on the promotion side. And to have the system be, like, on an elegant side. Because think about how many people play Arena right now, right? Like, it's fine, you can get a match, but it's not great. Now, imagine if you split the pool even in half. That's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. So I think Hearthstone kind of has that problem with Arena built into it, which is that whenever they do something to it, they really have to build something that they think that they can drive enough new players into the game mode if they're going to split the pool, or like create a new limited game mode. And if you do create a limited game mode, you are going to draw some Arena players out of Arena into the new game mode. That's presumably going to get some more support than Arena. So that's just one thing I want to like. It's kind of on the edge of what we're talking about, but it is an issue that they have to deal with. The thing I want to be like really like hone in on though for this MMR system is one, and I know we haven't said whether we're like pro MMR system or anti MMR system, but ultimately at the end of the day, if you add an MMR system, it's a different game. It's an entirely different game, and I want to bring MTG into this, and I want to bring duels into this. Because here, you have two limited systems, MTG Draft Mode and Duels, which is a repeated draft mode in Hearthstone, that both have MMR-based systems. And they are both limited format games to some extent. And in one case, MTG actually had the mode without an MMR system and then introduced the MMR system. And from what I can tell, everybody hated it. I don't know, like, I've done a little bit digging into it, just, at least the loudest people hate it, right? Like, I don't know a ton of MTGA players, but everything I could find, like, is just shitting on it. So you have that as an example, a pretty analogous example of what happens when you change things into an MMR format. And it's really because good players don't like more RNG into the system, and you're just adding more RNG into the system like that. Now, the other mode that we're talking about is Heroic Duels. Heroic Duels is a MMR system on top of a limited mode. I don't think anyone likes that either. I mean, no one plays it, so I assume they don't like it. And one of the reasons that no one plays it, is probably, at least the good players, is probably because of the MMR system. I don't know clearly it's not the only reason people don't play it. It's duels. But that's certainly not helping things. That's not making the competitive players go, oh, I want to, be the best. And now that we are all ranked, I can do that in a very easy way. And I want to play the best against the best players, and I want to be the best and have the best record. So this is attractive to me. At least in duels, no one said that, and no one's doing it except one person who literally one human being out of all the presumably existent duels players, or maybe this person's just playing against themselves. It always confuses me when Team America, the only duels player in the world, is able to find a match. I really think he's just I don't know. Let's say he averages 8 wins a run. I really think even when he's 10-0, he's matching against 4-win players on average, because there's just not enough players for them to pull from. But anyway, my point being, so historically, and you can see this from Blizzard's perspective, they're not idiots when it comes to game design, right? Blizzard's quite good at game design. So when they're trying to design this game mode, they see what happened to MTGA. They see their failure in duels. Even if they're not calling it failure, they at least see it as a problem, right? And so they can't go ahead and just do that. And I think they know that, right? This is not a question mark thing. This is plenty of historical evidence has shown that you cannot just do this. That if you want to do something like this, you have to do something else with it in a way that these two examples have not done, because these are very analogous examples. So I think Ixar and the whole Hearthstone team is sitting there saying, okay, we need MMR in, and we can go over why we need MMR in, afterwards. But I think it's really obvious, right? I don't know, maybe our listeners don't understand why you need an MMR system, or why a game designer would want an MMR system. But basically, bad players, everyone's a bad player who's a new players are generally bad players. New players get beaten down by good players when there's no MMR system. New players have less fun. New players, in this case, also get less rewards. But in other words, new players leave, and then you don't have new players. Right, that's a very simple kind of thing. That's why MMR systems exist, really, honestly. But they also are aware of this other problem, which is nice. And now they're trying to figure out how to do the least damage possible while still making the shift. You hear Ixar. It's not even an option whether an MMR system's coming in or not. An MMR system is coming into the arena. This is happening. Now, there may exist a separate arena that is the old arena, right? They may separate it. They may do some other fancy stuff with the MMR system, so it feels less like an MMR system or whatever. And that's what they're trying to figure out. They're trying to figure out how to best get new players in there and then get new players to stay in here. And their answer all run through the MMR system. But they're also recognizing that we can't just put an MMR system into the arena, because then all the old players will leave. That's the full setup of the context of what Team 5 is working with. And I really sympathize with their problem, because there's no easy solution, or else MTGA would have done it, or else they would have done it for duels.
Yeah. That's really the problem that we see right now. A lot of it comes from, this is sort of when you don't do this huge project that's been, that you've known about for a year, and you put off a lot of work, and at the last second you try to put together a great project that's going to get you an A. The problem is, by not doing something for so long and then trying to fit something at the last minute, you've limited your options. So if Blizzard had slowly worked on Arena, throughout the years, added stuff here and there, gotten feedback. It's just like the group project example. If that group, or you, and I know this is going to bring back some memories for you guys, had started earlier, your range of projects that you could have done was much wider. You had more options. But now, 2 hours before the project is due, you don't got a lot of options, because a lot of the supplies, a lot of the research that you needed for actual good projects are gone. So yeah, you can do something to salvage it, but a lot of your best options are already gone because you didn't give yourself that time.
So Okay, let me. I'll tell you what I think about this personally. But let me pitch an idea first, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm not the best player to think about how new players and bad players think about playing in the arena, but I think a lot of it. If you have a player that's interested in playing in a limited format, then you have a player who's very worried about their resources because they don't want to pay a lot of money to be able to do this. And they will have to pay a lot of money to do this because they suck. And that's how the structure is currently. So I think the problem is less a new players are losing issue, and it's more of a new players cannot afford to keep playing because they are the ones paying into the system, whereas the existing good players are not paying into the system as much. When really, it's like if you look at a lot of other game modes that Blizzard makes, the top players are the ones that are putting in a lot of money, right? Like a lot of Blizzard games have a little bit of a not like pay to win, but like pay to look cooler or like whatever, right? Like, and in some cases, like Warcraft, like actually pay to win to some degree system. So it's kind of inverted here with Arena, which is why it's pure, right? In a pure system, the people who are better at the game are going to end up at top. That's how it works. So instead of aligning your resources this way, the resource distribution should be inverted. Because right now, you get more stuff for each win, and it incentivizes you to get more wins. What I would propose is that the people who are winning a lot really care more about wins than necessarily resources. And to the extent that they are getting resources, you can reimburse them in resources that have less like actual value, and instead raise the floor of the actual value so that the curve, rather than is an exponential curve as it currently is, actually becomes a inverse exponential curve so that it tops out at like some particular wins, like 4 wins or whatever, which allows more players to like get most of their buy-in back, for example, right? Or like just like recover more than what they would otherwise get, while the top players, like if you get a 12-win run or something, you get achievements, potential like skin unlocks or like just other stuff that's not part of the core economy of Hearthstone. Because if you're an arena player, what do you need? Like golden cards? That's kind of it, right? Like, so maybe give them disproportionately weighted gifts and golden cards, right? Remember back in the day, like years ago, you had the idea that it's like make golden cards in the arena, but only if you get a 12-win run with that card, right? So not exactly like that, but just have rewards past a certain win rate be only adding golden cards. Like, and so you don't get more dust, and you don't get more gold, and you don't get more like whatever, right? To have the gold and dust part or whatever kind of cap out at a very low amount of win rates, so that everybody knows if you're going to the arena, you're going to be spending X amount of gold or dust that you will have to replenish in order to keep your habit going. But if you do go further, not only will your MMR or like your rating or whatever, like not MMR, I'm trying to do this without MMR. So not only will your like average go up or whatever, maybe leaderboard positions or whatever, but you'll also get more achievements. You should be compensated still, right, on like your experience, because there's a battle pass system now. So it's not like you're not being compensated for playing more time, but like the extra time you spend in is not being compensated at a higher rate than that of a bad player past the first few wins. So you instead structure the system where everyone's trying to get like 1 win above 3. So like that's why I think 4 wins is a good like cap out amount, because that feels reachable to even like bad players. Not frequently reachable, but like sometimes reachable, right? Whereas 12 wins, I don't know, maybe bad players reach 12 wins too, but you can mess up. Like if you're a bad player, you're gonna throw away the best decks. Like you really are. So that's how I would structure the incentive system. And yes, that means that you will never be able to get to be an infinite player. And I think that's okay with the battle pass. So now everyone's a soft infinite player, right? And that's kind of how Blizzard works. That's kind of how Hearthstone works. Everyone's a soft infinite player in Constructed, in Arena, in Battlegrounds. And if you want to pay for it, you can in Arena obviously pay for an Arena pass. You can also just pay for the Battle Pass upgrade, which will give you more stuff faster. which will effectively make it easier for you to be soft infinite. So I think this kind of monetization system solves all of your problems, unless you really think that the existing arena population and their win rates is what's like hugely driving, like divorce from the economics, that's still driving people away from arena in large numbers. Which I don't think is true, because I think if you're really coming into a limited game mode and you win like 1 or 2 games and then you lose 3 games, you're kind of okay with it if you're still getting stuff. Like you're in a learning process, right? You want to get stuff. So that's my pitch.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's fine, I guess. I don't know. I'm just in a wait and see approach. I'm not gonna pontificate. I'm not gonna kind of guess or say whatever. I like the fact that Blizzard knows they got to do something. They have been working on it for a while. Sorry, they've been at least thinking about it for a while. Whatever they do, I'm gonna be very curious about. But I'm just gonna see. That's it.
Okay, you're gonna talk about how do you feel about the MMR system? Like if they actually put an MMR system into it, and then raise, like, do the thing that everyone's expecting, right? Everyone's expecting them to put an MMR system in and then raise rewards to match for like the higher MMRs people.
I think if they believe it is necessary, sure. I'm not one of those people that believes that MMR can't be a part of. I'm not going to say arena because that's not the way to really define it.
Like a limited game system,
a limited game format. I think that if they implement it, they have to implement it in a way that has to satisfy people. You do have to tweak the rewards and everything. I think it's fine. I just believe that no matter which way you do it, it has to be done in a way that feels rewarding enough, and it also feels good for the people playing it. They can look at many different games on how they do it. MTG does it, has been doing it for quite a while, and they have like quite a few like sort of formats within it as well. And MTG has ways where you can tweak the deck, because of their sealed formats and everything. I know Shadowverse, what they did was you always play a certain amount of games, so you never feel bad, right? Well, I mean, you could feel bad if you keep losing, but it's different because but you always play a certain amount of games, so you always at least get your quote money's worth by getting those games in. So it's like, you're paying the admission, and the length of the movie is always the same. It's just about how you perform in there. That's one of the many tools and levers that they could use. I think whatever they do, I'm hoping the end product and the end experience will be good. It's just there's so many ways to get there. There's just not one path. Games have shown us that there's many things that they can do in order to do it. It's really about the end combination. So I prefer not to just say like, oh, it has to be this way, it has to be that way. There really is a lot that they could do with it.
Yeah. And like that's what I think. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure XR thought about this more than we have, maybe, hopefully. But the conclusion that top players winning 70% plus of their games is not viable with a good limited gameplay like system in the arena, that's bullshit. Like when I hear that, I'm like, it may not be like maybe you have a difference of opinion or whatever, but like this is not. People have done it and it's been okay. Like the harsh phrasing of it, right? The very definite, like, whatever else happens, one thing we don't think is compatible with a good game mode is top players winning 70% of their matches. That's just a bad game design, right? Like in terms of stuff.
That was definitely the most surprising thing in there, because I'm like, I don't really get it. Like I don't understand it so much. And especially because if you even look at, I mean,
everything,
like everything, or even Battlegrounds, right?
Exactly.
Like their own mode. They made it. It's very different though with Battlegrounds, because they purposefully try to make it such that you like can't gain MMR, and yet people still do. So that's a game where you look at them trying to reign these, the people at the very top of the leaderboard. So we're not even talking about, plebs like me with like 13.5k MMR. You're talking about like 16k MMR. They're trying to rein those people in, and yet they kind of beat the odds. They're the
because their
above
win
70%
rate,
win
yeah,
rate. Yeah.
they're being put with like as close to them as possible in MMR players in a lobby of 8, and they are consistently averaging like a place that would get them what would be the equivalent of 70% plus win rate in the arena. Like they're doing it consistently, and that's with an MMR system. So
Yeah.
I don't know what Ixar knows that we don't know. But it seems to me like the vast majority of games have players winning 70% plus. The vast majority of games don't have this problem that Ixar thinks that Arena has. And in fact, within Hearthstone, their most popular game mode, doesn't have this problem and does have players who are effectively winning 70% of their games. They're just not gaining the MMR for them, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like they're beating people super consistently. But yeah, like what they do is they win, they just don't get rewards.
Yeah,
Which seems
exactly.
like a
Which is
clunky
what
way
I'm
to do it.
saying. But no, but that's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's what my whole system is, right? Like past a certain number of wins, your rewards start shifting into some other like thing that's not a real like currency. It's not gold or dust.
Right.
So you are getting the wins. You're just quote unquote not getting rewarded for them, except with like internet points, right? That's like effectively what I'm pitching, because that's effectively what something like Battlegrounds is, and that's effectively what a lot of MMR systems or lack thereof, that's how they reward people. So if the real problem is resources, which it sounds like from Ixar's tweets, that's the real problem. Because, like, also honestly, we see the arena leaderboards. We know how many players there are actually winning 70% plus of their matches. It is incredibly low. It is like, I could, like, write a list of all their names or something if you give me a little bit of time. Like, this is... these are not the players that are going to ruin the masses' experience in a game, assuming that this game has any kind of player base at all, right? Which I expect that if they're going to put more work into the arena, they expect to get more players into the arena, right? They don't expect to get the same or fewer players in the arena. So, I don't know. I feel like this is like a really weird conclusion to come to. That's like a weird, hard conclusion to come to. It should obviously be an idea that's explored, but I'm curious on how they've explored this to come to the conclusion that nothing else here, like Ixar made no definite statements in these two tweets, except for the one thing that they're 100% sure about, which is that no one can consistently win 70% plus of their games in order for this to be a healthy game mode. It's such a weird conclusion to come to. That's contradicted by all competitive gaming, and including within Hearthstone.
Yeah, that's definitely the weirdest part. And of course, here's the thing: it's Twitter, so people snap off statements, which maybe if you ask them about it, they're like, okay, it's not exactly like that. So I don't know, but yeah, that part of this of his Twitter answer was definitely the one that raised my eyebrow a little bit.
Like, what I'm hoping is that, because his exact statement is not the top player, right? His exact statement is good players winning 70% of their games. Now, that could mean many things, right? Maybe he just doesn't want like the top 10% of players winning 70% of their plus of their games, which is fine. But also, right now in the arena, very few people win 70% plus of their games. So if he's addressing the crowd that wins 70% plus of the games, he's not just talking about good players. He's talking about like a couple dozen of the best players in the arena, right? Like maybe there's like 100 or so in total of these players. At least the ones that play frequently. Maybe 200, definitely less than 1,000. Like, so I don't know what he's addressing by good players. I have to assume that by good players, he just means players who are currently winning 70% plus. But like, there is something to be said for lowering the win rate. But 70% plus being like just incompatible with good game design for long-term success, as he puts it. That's not like a game design thing. That's not a competitive game design thing. That's not even like a casual competitive, I guess we'll call what Arena would be, because it's not like true competitive. Like, it's just, it's a philosophy, sure, but it's not like a statement of truth, because other people have done it, and Hearthstone has done it. So I don't like other card games have done it, other non-card games have done it. It's a very odd statement to be the one definite thing you say in these tweets. Anyway, um, I'm with you on the MMR thing. I don't think MMR is the absolute worst thing in the world. I don't have that like exact reaction that I think Arena HS has. There's also different ways to do MMR. They could have like a gatekeeping system where you get up to the legendary mode and then you face legendary players or like whatever. They could have an actual scaling MMR the way they do Battlegrounds. It's probably not necessary to do that, but they could do whatever they want with it. There's many ways to like cut it. Some are worse, some are better than others, but it's just not necessary to make a good game mode or to have an MMR system. And I don't know. Though I forgot who. Someone in there had a good statement that was like, first figure out heroic duels, then bring the MMR system to Arena. Like, it's true. You already have a game mode that's set up structurally very similar to the Arena in terms of 12 wins, and then you have to pay some stuff to like get in and you get rewards out of it. You've set it up, and the heroic duels is a huge failure, even compared to regular duels. So figure your shit out before you ruin a game mode, right? Like, not and also heroic duels is not preventing players from winning 70% plus of their games. I know Team America is definitely winning 70% plus of his games, like more than that. So I don't know. It just feels like I just don't know where they're getting the facts from.
Yeah, I don't know. Once again, this is one of those things where I tend to give people a little bit more leniency when it's posted on Twitter, especially. It's like maybe if you ask them a little bit more, they'll either provide a little bit more context, or it's like, well, I didn't exactly mean it in that way. So who knows? But once again, happy that XR is doing this. Because in previous years we just wouldn't have this. We would have no way to even get this sort of insight. We wouldn't have known that changes to Arena are quote coming, but they've been thinking about it for a while, and you have at least two people within Blizzard who are playing a good amount of Arena. So that's definitely something.
All right. Yeah, let's move on to Battlegrounds. The Quillboar tribe is coming into Battlegrounds next week. It is going to be the 8th tribe, and they have announced that they are currently not working on any new tribes after Quillboar. And looking at the fact that Quillboars are actually going to be a tribe tag in the game, it seems like this is not the direction that Battlegrounds is going. They're not going to just keep adding new tribes. They specifically said they're going to play around with adding spells, such as with the Darkmoon Fair and or other things. Not new tribes, but I guess playing around with a neutral package or something, rather than adding like more and more and more tribes. So this will be the last tribe for a while.
Yeah. What I like about how many tribes are in the game right now is that this gives Blizzard the ability to potentially take out any tribe and say, okay, we're going to take this out of the game right now and just put it in the garage, put it in the shop. We're going to work on it for a little bit and tinker around with it, maybe. And then we can put it back out again. Because with the introduction of Quillboars, as you guys know, right now, two tribes are out, and now we have Quillboars. So you can go back to a meta in which only two tribes are out of the meta by Blizzard sort of like shelving or putting the tribe back into the shop. I think we all agree something like demons definitely could use some tweaking. Pirates could use some tweaking. All the tribes can be improved in some ways. I think some are healthier and a little bit better and a little bit more fun than others. But what they did with a taunt comp as well, the result wasn't great, but the idea is nice, as in we don't always need a new tag, something that works within itself and synergizes with itself and occasionally synergizes with other stuff. It's like, oh, we can have neutral packages. We could just have interesting neutrals that work with a lot of other things as well. But this patch 20.2 is dropping on Tuesday. Tons of changes, very overdue, so overdue. It's going to be very exciting. I can tell you guys right now that when I do come back to Hearthstone, which will be in about a week, I'm spamming BGs. This is going to be something that I'm going to be focusing on a lot. I want to figure out Quillboars. I think it'll just be fun as well because I really haven't gone back to BGs in about 4 months or so.
Yeah. I mean, looking through the Quillboars, my first impression of the Quillboars is that they don't do a lot. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just missing the big picture of how all the tier 6 ones are going to interact with the tier 3 ones and how it's all going to build upon each other. And it's going to be this, like, nice, lots of huge stat things. But this, it feels like even compared to, like, elementals, this feels like a bit lacking in stats. But we'll get to it. We'll see how it comes out. It is a interesting mechanic in that it is different from other stuff. They actually came out with a new thing, which, like, honestly, are elementals different than other things? Yes, but not by that much. Like, Nomi is different than other things. The other elementals, wasn't really all that creative, right? But these Quillboars have a mechanic that is all to themselves, and that's what you want to see.
Yes. Okay, let's go through the heroes and then we can go through all of the units. But there are 3 new heroes being introduced, and also they introduced the Quillboar buff to the Rat King as well. Great. All right, so the first hero is Death Speaker Blackthorne. Passive hero power. And the hero power is after you upgrade Bob's Tavern, gain 2 blood gems. So this I will talk about it in a little bit after we introduce all the units, because blood gems is the resource that Quillboars give you. So every time you level up, you gain 2 blood gems. I'll hold off on this discussion until a little bit later. You have Vol'jin. Vol'jin is choose 2 minions, swap their stats. It costs 0. So it costs 0. I'm guessing, like with other 0 cost hero powers, you can just use it once per turn. But yeah, so this is an interesting hero. Immediately, you should think of, okay, well, what are the things I want to get stats on? Those are typically cleaves. So you want it on foe reapers, you want it on cave hydras. You can transfer stats onto a divine shield as well, but typically cleaves are better than just a divine shield. Or in the case of foe reaper, you can divine shield a cleave. And what are the easiest minions to get stats on? It's demons, it's Wrathweavers, right? So the way you want to play Vol'jin typically is you want demons to at least be in the game so that you have the option of doing that. And that way you get the earliest scaling possible. That's the benefit of demons. They have the earliest scaling possible in the game, and it's pretty cheap scaling as well, but you do have to use your health, but it's pretty cheap scaling. And then what ends up happening is demons get outclassed later in the game, in the late mid game, in the actual late game. They just can't compete because they don't have divine shields. Their scaling eventually is much weaker compared to Brand, compared to Kalagos, compared to actual, good tier 5, tier 6 units. But with Vol'jin, you can counteract that by swapping these big fat Wrathweaver stats onto the cleaves, or even like a Bronze Warden so that it has divine shield. Now, as for whether or not I think Vol'jin is actually good, I don't think it'll actually be good, just because you got to get there. And these situations in which you think, oh man, I'm going to be able to swap these demons onto blah blah, you're not always going to get the Wrathweavers. So what are you going to do? You can't always force the comp. We know that's super dangerous in high MMR. I'm very hopeful. So it doesn't really help you with econ, right? There's no econ help here. There's also no tempo help. Like what you do is this huge transfer of the tempo you've already gained onto something else. So yeah, you do quote gain tempo eventually, but it doesn't help you get there. It's sort of like cat, in which you're just like, oh man, I'm waiting for my tempo gain, but I need tempo to get there first. So Volge is one of those where it could end up working well, but like he doesn't help you get there at all, which is really scary. Like heroes that don't help you get there for a potential big payout, that's not that's pretty dangerous.
Mm-hmm. I see some people going kind of crazy over this hero power, but it is like it's difficult for me to see the end game payout and actually being able to get there. Whereas a lot of other heroes just have good things in the end game and good things in the mid game, right?
Yeah. It, Having said, like, it's gonna be okay-ish. I don't think it'll be complete trash. Like, it'll be fine.
You have to start using it in the mid game. Like you can't just hold it as if it's like like a Reno kind of thing. There's a reason you can use it every turn. You may not use it every turn, but you have to use it somewhat frequently.
You can use it. So, like, what happens, for example, is if you see a Bronze Warden in the shop, you can use it with like another minion, right? In the shop. So you can get that tempo boost there. But once again, it's like we're getting kind of situational here. It's like, okay, you got to get that Bronze Warden, you got to get this, you got to get that, and like it could work out. It could definitely work out, but Bronze Warden is a great example because 2-1 stats, you're probably going to have something that's more than 2-1. When you're talking about Deflecto Bot, it's like when you're on tier 3, exactly how many other minions have like better stats than 3-2? A few, not too many. And then if you're swapping with something that has like 3-3, well, that doesn't really do anything. You're hoping for like what, a 4-4, maybe you find a 4-5, but like 4-5s aren't that common on tier 3. So you start thinking about these good scenarios as well, and you're like, yeah, that boosted up a little bit, but it's still not great.
Yeah, and the thing is, once you boost it up once, you don't boost it up again, right? Like you're boosting up one minion once, then it's boosted, then you got to tavern tier up like once or twice before you can get more stats onto it, and at that time, that minion stats can't have grown, or else you don't want to replace it again.
Yeah, yeah. Like we've seen consistently that the best heroes either give you econ or they give an extreme amount of tempo. So it's either like if you're talking tempo, it's like Cthulhu or Ragnaros, right? Which is an extreme amount of tempo. Or you have econ in one way or the other. And here, yeah, yeah.
Like I don't
Unless they
know.
change something significantly.
Tokens will be pretty good in the early game with this.
It'll be fine. Like I said, if you didn't have that sort of utility, it would actually be trash. It would actually be trash, right?
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying like this guy's not trash. He's fine. He's just not going to be with the way our understanding of the game works right now, and with the way that the meta is currently set up. He won't be amazing, but he's fine. He's fine. Yeah.
I think he's gonna be better than Yogg.
Yeah. Because Yogg sucks now.
Oh yeah, is Yogg totally bad now?
Oh yeah, Yogg is terrible.
Yogg
is like actually, yeah, Yogg is okay. Maybe terrible is.
I was about to say I don't think Yogg is like bottom tier or anything. I thought he was mid. Is he not mid?
Well, wait. What do you mean by like? What's your definition of mid and
like around
4.5?
What, like maybe like above 4.6 or?
No, I don't believe so. Here, let me check. Let me check and see where Yogg is. All right, we'll pull up HS replay.
Okay, Yogg is 4.6.
Yeah, Yogg is 4.6.
It's like somewhere between mid and below average, right? He's like in tier 3. Like obviously you don't want to pick him, but so you think this guy is going to be above 4.5?
I think it's possible.
Okay, I think that's a good prediction. Just because I look at it and now I'm thinking about it more, I'm like, well, he's definitely better than Yogg. And if Yogg is 4.6,
yeah. Because the thing that Yogg has going for it is the ability to power level a little bit, but like he's just so weak. He's so weak,
Yeah, I mean,
and
he
you
has
don't
no like
have
late
that.
mid game / end game.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, so if you can move him up to like a 4.4, he's like around where like Darrow is or like Reno, which
yeah.
is not bad at all actually.
That's not bad. I think Reno is a good like if any hero is Reno, that's pretty decent. Like
Yeah.
Reno is kind of where you want to be. Okay. Next we have uh Zarella. She's got a hero power that costs 2. Choose a minion in Bob's Tavern to add to your hand. Set its stats to 2. So you get to buy something for cheaper, uh, but you don't get like the stats for it, which is fine because a lot of stuff that you buy, it's not something that you keep on the board. It's like a buff or it's like a tech unit or something that you don't exactly need the actual stats and you don't care about the stats. So it's a little bit of econ. I don't see this being amazing as well.
It's
It
like
just
it's got to be like slightly better than Nas, right? That's what you're getting because you're getting one free coin, like not coin, one free mana every turn, but in a better way than Nas does because Nas forces you to roll. This forces you to buy.
this forces you to buy. Yeah.
So there is a downside in the stats thing, but there's got to be something that you're buying that you don't care about stats, right? Like in the early going, you may not be buying anything that has more than 2/2s of stats, and then later on you'll just buy some kind of buff or something. So I think it's going to be better than Nas, a little bit better than Nas, which is around where Vol'jin is too. Like Nas is 4.5 right now.
Yeah, the thing with Nas is Nas's hero power gets better in the late game. Rolls are more valuable than just
Then one
this
mana that you
than
save that
buying.
you can use for a roll, you're going to buy a buff in the late game every turn.
Probably. Like a lot of times in the late game though, you're kind of just looking for that selfless. You're just looking for that like one thing. So this is what I mean. It's like when you're in the top 2, a lot of like when you're in the top 2, it's like definite Nas is like 100% better than Zarella.
But like until you're in the top 2, sorry, I'm just unfamiliar with that part of the game in which I still care about. Like I've already won the game if I'm in the top 2. Like that's just an irrelevant part of the game. But like up until then, right, all the way through the top 4, this is better.
Yeah. So look, I like the design of Zarella because she is an econ hero, but she's not a dangerous econ hero.
Yeah, she feels like a very balanced econ hero. It's like Nas.
Yes.
Like it's like a different way to do Nas that I feel like is better than Nas. I don't know. You may feel like it's about the same or even worse than Nas, but that's good because Nas is a very average hero.
Nas is a very average hero. You get an extra gold, except it's not exactly an extra gold per turn. You have to use it, right? It's like money that you have to spend is not the same.
And you have to spend in a specific way. That's why I like Zarella's power better, because you're going to buy stuff more often than you're going to roll, I think.
Yeah, she's going to be decent. Like, I think I like her design. I like Vol'jin's design as well. Neither of these are going to be super powerful, I think. But I like it. And, you know, the days of introducing, if you guys remember, it's like introducing Hooktusk and Eudora into the meta and having both of these heroes just like freaking pound every other hero. Let's not have that again. All right. Let's not have that. Let's not have Hooktusk and Eudora introduced at the same time, just pounding face. I'm fine with this. Like, I will play these heroes because I think they're interesting. I want to figure them out. But
they're also normal and don't require a lot of clicks. Like they allow you to do whatever your game plan is, right? Like they don't force you into a game plan. I mean, Vol'jin sort of forces you into some like late game plan of like one of your units, maybe, right? Like, but it's a very slight shift. Like you need more normal-ish heroes into the pool. Like, and it's really hard actually to design normal-ish heroes. It's much more easy to design crazy heroes that still come out to be of average power, right? Than it is to design a more elegant hero that, you know, is at the right power. And by the way, let's just talk about Death Speaker Blackthorne. We'll deal with it like later, but I think we should still introduce them so people have them in their minds. The Quillboars rely on blood gems as their resource. Blood gems are bananas. They're bananas. 0 mana +1/+1 cards, and sometimes your Quillboars will do something extra if you buff them with a blood gem. One of the units makes all blood gems +2/+2. Stuff happens when you play blood gems on Quillboars. So Deathspeaker Blackthorn's power is after you upgrade Bob's Tavern, gain 2 blood gems. This should immediately remind you of Omu. Every time you upgrade Bob's Tavern, get 2 mana. Only here, instead of 2 mana, you get 2 +1/+1. You get to put it wherever you want, and it combos if you are playing Quillboars. So obviously, it works better if you're playing Quillboars, but you don't necessarily you're taking a small penalty when you don't play Quillboars. Because keep in mind, your first maybe 2 taverns upgrading won't do much anyway, whether you put it on a Quillboar or not. So you only have a few taverns in which the late game Quillboars will actually do something, and it's not that big of a difference unless you're super set up. But overall, I think it's just way worse than Omu because Omu allows you to do econ stuff, and this one really doesn't. Even though it's technically the same amount of resources, it doesn't allow you to play around with resources. So I'm talking about Omu in terms of the actual value you get, not in terms of the ability to do stuff with resources, which we all know is, a big part of what makes heroes powerful in this game. Something like this is like you put this next to Bartendotron, and you're like, oh, I could see it, right? You put this next to Omu, you're like, why does Omu and this guy both exist? This is so much worse than Omu.
Yeah, and it's because there is inherent value in getting to tiers faster than other people, so you can find better units. It's because of the principle that a gold early on, the inherent worth of a gold / a mana / whatever, on turn 1, 2, or 3 is not the same as that 1 gold is on later turns, in which your expected value for that gold has to get higher. So this is one of those things where with Omu as well, he is helping you to translate your 1 gold into much more faster than other people. Meanwhile, this hero, Death Speaker Blackthorne, basically gives you the same bonus. It's like,
but it changes the bonus to +1/+1, and rather than scaling with time, it scales with how synergized you are to Quillboars.
Right. So the blood gems could be good if you go Quillboars. If you don't go Quillboars, it's just stats, and the more you level up, the less these blood gems are worth if you don't go Quillboars. But the more you go Quillboars, the better it is. It is interesting just because for a hero, for a tribe hero, this one definitely evens it out a little bit more. It's not like Florgal, in which if you don't have any Murlocs, you get nothing. With patches, if you don't buy pirates, you get nothing. With Blackthorne, it's like, all right, fine. For some reason, you want to go dragons, have some buffs.
Sometimes you just don't get Quillboars, it happens, sometimes. Right? And so you're not totally, how sometimes you play just without a hero power with some of these heroes because you're trying to go a tribe and then it doesn't work and you're like, welp, I guess I'm doing something else. That will never happen with this hero. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're just using this as a non-Quillboar kind of hero because you're forced into it or whatever, this is not an average hero. This is a bad hero. But it'll still do something, right? It'll be I think it's around Bartendotron level if Quillboars aren't in the game. That's my read on the overall power level of this guy. And Bartendotron sucks.
Yeah, I think this hero will just be, I don't know, decent-ish once again.
I think Quillboars suck, so I think it's going to be a bad hero.
Yeah, I think it'll be better than you think it'll be, but yeah, I'm not super excited about the potential of Quillboars. Also, they're a little bit underwhelming in terms of a tribe just as to their mechanic as well. It's like bananas, right? It's like I don't think anyone was super excited about bananas as a mechanic. So bananas triggering everything else. I don't know. But look, let's talk about some of the units. So for the minions, you got 2 tier 1 units.
I'll read the units out. You can evaluate the units. Razor Fen Geomancer, tier 1, 3/1 Quillboar, Battlecry, gain a blood gem. So it's a 4/2. Or you can buff something else that uses it more than this. So it's a flexible 4/2. I think tempo-wise, that's pretty good.
The problem is, a lot of tier 1 units, you're thinking of buying on the very first turn.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I mean, on the very first turn.
This is definitely a little bit like you can buy this. You could definitely buy this in the same vein that sometimes you are forced to buy like a 2/2, right? And this is better than a 2/2. And as to whether or not you want to actually put the gem on, I would say most of the time you do.
Yeah.
you want to put it on immediately. So it's a 4/2. It's fine. It's not a good. It's not a preferable purchase for a lot of people on turn 1. But you've bought 2/2s before, and not like at good 2/2s, like tier 1 beast scavenging hyena tier 1.
Hey, best unit. Okay, it used to be a tier 2 unit, unnerfed going to tier 1.
That's true. So it's not great. But yes, I would say most of the time you do want to use that gem. Otherwise, you get dominated by way too many things. And it's not worth taking the damage just to save a stupid blood gem. Don't do it.
All right, next one up is Victor's new screen name, apparently, on Twitch. Sunbacon Relaxer. Tier 1, Quillboar, 1/2. When you sell this, gain 2 blood gems. So it's like that dragon that when you sell, you buff stuff. Here, you sell it, you get a flexible +2/+2 buff, but it's a 1/2.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those units like Selemental, like it's kind of like Selemental in a way in which later in the game for certain builds, Selementals are good scaling, right? When you have major domos, when you have like the either the rags or party rock, Selementals are a great tier 1 unit because you buy for 3 gold, you can sell double elementals, you play 2 elementals, they're great buffs. Sunbacon Relaxer is in the same vein. It's worse than Selemental in that it's much worse on turn 1. It's a 1/2 instead of a 2/2. So you're going to lose a lot more matchups on turn 1. You could still buy this because once you sell it, that 2 blood gems, like you're going to say, all right, I'm going to sell this on turn 3 after I level. I'm going to take some damage, but I do get those, get that buff. So if you have bad units, you could take this. You could just take a little bit of HP damage and say, well, I'm going to get +2/+2 starting on turn 3, which means I'm going to prevent damage for the at least a couple of turns after that. So it's fine. This is I like heroes like this typically where it's like they have some applicability in the early game and actually quite a lot of applicability in the late game.
Yeah, I think it's excellent design, Sunbacon Relaxer. This is like great. Not just because of endgame applicability, but because it's like Selemental, like you said. Like for a normal hero, you sell this on turn 3 in order to buy 2 units, and you get 2/2s worth of stats back, right? So you've like lost nothing in like one of the most terrible turns for a normal hero when you don't get a token that you can like easily sell. And so if you are, and the best thing is, if you're a normal hero that gets a token or not on turn 1, which is the turn that you have to make a decision whether to buy this or not. So it's a great unit for any normal hero that has no weird econ things they can do with the early game, and you don't get a token offered to you in the first turn. Like you take this because you're going to sell that unit anyway to get a possible tier 2 unit, and now you get +2/+2 stats, right? In exchange for losing like, I don't know, 1 health, 2 health, 3 health maybe, right? Like whatever. You're getting the stats that'll stick around for quite a while. All right. Tier 2.
Let's go through all the tier 2s.
Okay. You want me to go through all the tier 2s before we talk about them? Okay.
Yeah.
Tier 2 is where Quillboars start to be Quillboars. Tier 2 starts with Road Boar, 2/4 Quillboar, Frenzy, gain a blood gem. So potentially they gain a blood gem every time it fights. Tough Tusk, 4/3 Quillboar. After a blood gem is played on this, gain Divine Shield for the next combat. I don't know why it says that, and it just can't have a Divine Shield. But whatever. And finally, Prophet of the Boar, 3/3, once per turn. After you play a Quillboar, gain a blood gem.
Yeah. Well, for Tough Tusk, they want to limit your options and keep on buffing that, right? Or say you have to keep generating blood gems, otherwise you don't get Divine Shield.
Right, but I mean, you don't need that extra text, and it'll do the same thing. Is my point. But it'll keep the Divine Shield into if it doesn't pop it right into the next one. So they made it so you lose the Divine Shield at the end, even if it never pops. That's the only difference. It feels like a very weird, specific thing to add.
Okay. So yeah, this is where you are able to get these get more of the identity of Quillboars. They give you stuff they give you 2 units that you do want to buff. You want to buff the Road Boars because you want the Frenzy to trigger as often as possible. The Tough Tusk you also want to buff because you want to win upcoming battles. So these are good. I like the fact that the Road Boar has 4 health, which means on the critical turn 3, turn 4, and turn 5-ish, on those turns, most of the time you're facing stuff that doesn't have 4 attack. And most importantly, you're facing taunts that only have 2 to 3 attack. So you're facing the Acolyte, you're facing let's see, the 3/3 demon. So you got the 2/3 taunt, the 2/2 taunt, and a 3/3 taunt. So the Road Boar 4 HP is very very good for those turns, which is typically the turns that you want to pick it up, and of course you want to keep buffing it as well. The Tough Tusk is good because that is definitely a unit that you want to start building around. And we don't have so many tier 2 units that have a chance of making it into the late game. But if you go full Quillboars, Tough Tusk is definitely one of those that you want to consider because, as we know in BGs, Divine Shield is OP. Divine Shield has been the meta, will be the meta unless something really changes. So Tough Tusk is something that you want to pick up early, and it's strong enough. A 4/3 is pretty good, and you can use it early. They incentivize you to buff it early, and you have some applicability into the late game. Tough Tusk is one of those units that makes me think Quillboars are at least going to be okay, because people look at something like this and when they look at the whole Quillboar package, it might seem a little bit underwhelming, but the true power in a tribe is really the bridge that gets you to the late game. And the things that you want to look for are, is this hero good normally? Just you picking it up, right? Like you don't have to commit to Quillboars, but does it kind of already just incentivize you to pick it up? Sure, a 4/3 is fine on tier 2 on those turns. And it has that applicability in the late game. So it's like Dragons and Bronze Warden. Now, obviously, Tough Tusk is not as good as Bronze Warden. We're talking about one of the best units, like pound for pound units in the game. But Bronze Warden is one of those reasons that the Dragon tribe is good, because you pick up Bronze Warden and it just makes it easier to transition if you fall into that Caligo. So you're like, oh, well, I have this Bronze Warden anyways. That's the thing that you always want to look at whenever you're evaluating any tribe. Are there Bronze Wardens within this tribe that could be helpful? Just like
okay, but Bronze Warden doesn't do anything for dragons. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a bridge. I think it functions very differently than Tough Tusk.
But then you don't take that Caligos if you don't have the Bronze Warden. Like, you can't afford to take the Caligos when it's offered. You get what I mean?
Okay.
Like,
I think
you
it's
have
very
a double Bronze Warden and your tier 6, you have like Gascoiler versus shit versus Caligos, right? You didn't have you didn't pick up like the Bronze Warden or the Bronze Wardens then you pick the gas core because you're like, I can't, right? Like the buildup is too much. But because of how good that Bronze Warden was, and you picked it up, not because you were even expecting the Caligos, but because the Bronze Warden was good, then you could actually pick the Caligos. So it's like this chain reaction.
I think it's a very specific kind of thing, especially because Quillboars is not. There's no Caligos for Quillboars, as we'll see. In fact, there is nothing on tier 5 or tier 6 that have to do with anything with Quillboars from Quillboars. So it's the exact opposite of the Caligos situation for Quillboars. Like,
the Caligos situation is an example, but it's like what they did with Salty Looter and buffing it to a 4/4.
Yes, I agree with that. I'm just saying the Bronze Warden is the opposite example.
No. It's still the same.
This is like Salty Looter.
By you buying that, you are more likely to, when presented with the option to actually go all in, you're like, oh well, I had my foot in the door already. But like you wouldn't have like actually gone in if you didn't have your foot in the door. Are there units that get your foot in the door that just are decent on their own and have that potential later on? Whether it is a Bronze Warden, whether it's a Salty Looter, whether it's a Tough Tusk.
Yeah, I'm not saying that like Tough Tusk is not a bridge. Tough Tusk is definitely a bridge, but it's a bridge for the mid game for Quillboars. This is not a bridge for the end game. Whereas for Bronze Warden, you can do a lot of things with Bronze Warden before you get to Caligos or even the potential of Caligos. Like, and having
all you need is that first step, because if you have that first step, you're incentivized to buy the second thing. Like you have the Bronze Warden, therefore you buy the Twilight Emissary, correct? You buy the Twilight Emissary, suddenly you have 2 dragons, and then you get like that's the thing. You have the Salty Looter, and then whenever you see like the 4/5 pirate that like buffs your pirates when it attacks by 2, you're like, well, okay, I wouldn't have bought it, but now it's like actually some stats, even though I only have 1 Salty Looter because it's +1, and then the Salty Looter gets some stats, and then because I had that, well, wait, now this Hogger comes along, or
I understand the concept of a bridge. I'm saying that the Bronze Warden is a much weaker bridge. Like, to call it a bridge, it's probably the weakest bridge in the game compared to the Salty Looter, for example, as a real bridge. Like, Tough Tusk is like the Salty Looter. It anchors your entire build, whereas or it can anchor your entire build. Whereas, like, Dragons, you're really not getting it until Caligos. For the Tough Tusk, you can do Quillboars once you have a Tough Tusk. You don't need other pieces, or you do need some other pieces, but you don't need any specific other pieces. Whereas Bronze Warden, Caligos is your bridge. You need some stuff before that, but Caligos is what you need.
What do you mean Caligos is your bridge?
Okay, whatever you want to call it. The cards you need to hit for Dragons is Caligos. It's not Bronze Warden. The cards you need to hit for Quillboars is Tough Tusk.
No, I don't agree with that. Well, wait, what? No, like you what? Tough Tusk is not what, like. Wait, you got to explain this more. I don't get this, because Tough Tusk is not what Quillboars is.
What I'm saying is, okay, can you do pirates without a Salty Looter? You can. Your build is going to be much, much worse, right? I'm not saying you can't, but the Salty Looter is generally what's considered to start the whole thing. I don't think that works with Dragons, because Caligos is so key to your endgame. Like, the cornerstone, like people in chat are using the word cornerstone. I don't care what word you use. Everything runs through Caligos for the Dragon build. Anything else, including a Bronze Warden, is just a nice to have. Whereas the Tough Tusk can get to a pretty insane point. Like, I think it's much closer to a Salty Looter, where it ends up being, like, you can quite easily build it up to a point. It's even better than the Salty Looter. But you can build it up to the point where you just don't ever want to get rid of this guy. Like, regardless of what build you're in. The Bronze Warden kind of maybe gets there, but it's very hard. And why? It's because you have very few things that buff Dragons going up into it. Now, if you do have one, you'll use it on the Bronze Warden, but your access to them and your willingness to spend some resources to get there, if you also want to be leveling up to the point where you're actually getting the Caligos, is very sparse. On the other hand, Tough Tusk gets the buff every single time you get a blood, or every single turn that you have an access to a blood gem. So it's going to be quite buffed by the time you get anywhere. Also, it's like when it starts synergizing with other stuff, is not tier 6. It starts synergizing with other stuff technically immediately, but really you're getting like starting on tier 3, the very next tier it starts synergizing with stuff. So the network synergies that Tough Tusk generates helps out not only immediately, but you're forced to buff at least one blood gem on this guy every single turn. So it's definitely growing every turn. Like, I think it's leaps and bounds different in function than Bronze Warden and getting you to dragons. How Tough Tusk gets you to Quillboars. Like, Salty Looter is a better example, I think. But even Salty Looter doesn't get to the level that Tough Tusk gets you to.
I don't see how this answer, like, because you don't take Caligos unless you have other dragons. Dragons have to be good enough for you to take them. Bronze Warden is one of the dragons that actually incentivizes you to take it, and then actually allows you to take Caligos. I don't understand how that is. Like,
but did you hear and understand and agree with everything I just said about Tough Tusk versus Bronze Warden versus Salty Looter? Because I think you're talking about something totally different.
Right, I am. Which I don't understand why you're like, no, it's nothing.
Okay, but do you agree with everything that I said? Like in my last spiel about how Tough Tusk is different than Bronze Warden.
I mean, kind of. There's also like Razor Gore. But like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I just don't understand why you're like, no. Like, it's this. Whereas, I do agree that I think we're just talking about different things.
Then we agree, and we can move on. I thought you were drawing an analogy, but you were drawing a less strict analogy, I guess, than what I was thinking of the analogy you were drawing, because you were trying to bring Bronze Warden to Caligos. And I think that's so fundamentally different from bringing Tough Tusk into Quillboars.
That's the thing. I'm not bringing anything to anything. I'm saying Caligos doesn't happen unless you have Bronze Warden.
Okay, but you just said Quillboars do happen, even if you don't have Tough Tusk. So where's your analogy? Right? Like, you shifted the analogy on me in the middle of our conversation to something much less secure.
If you're talking about that,
I'm not talking about that. I thought you were talking about that.
Wait, no, you don't need Tough Tusk for.
I agree. But you just said you need Bronze Warden for Caligos, and you're trying to make the analogy that they're similar.
I'm saying you
brought the second part into
something like the Bronze Warden, because you can't take Caligos if you have no dragon.
I'm not disagreeing with that. But I'm saying that's a different position than Tough Tusk, given their available options. Like, well, you'll see what I mean once you start playing with Quillboars in the game. Like, I think the main problem with this argument is that you started the argument somewhere. I may have interpreted it in a different way than you did, but then you shifted your argument into saying some other different analogy, and now you're trying to defend both analogy when half of it is incompatible with the first comparison, and the other half is different in scope, in my opinion.
It's because what you think is, like, I'm specifically saying it's just Bronze Warden, whereas I'm using Bronze Warden as, like, you need to incentivize people to take dragons, right?
If you're going with just the super basic, so you're just saying that Bronze Warden is a bridge, Tough Tusk is a bridge, Salty Looter is a bridge, so they're all bridges. I agree. I have never in this entire conversation disagreed that they're all bridges. I think they're different kinds of bridges, and they function very differently in how you build up into the build. Like, that's why I think it's hard.
You were disagreeing for a while. But
because once I started saying that it's a bridge, you started saying, well, but it's not a necessary bridge. And you brought in the secondary argument of whether it's necessary or not, which I didn't really have too much of an opinion on between Tough Tusk and Blood, but I wanted to see what you meant by it. And that kind of sidetracked us a little bit. And then I went back to my main argument, and then you really focused on the side argument, and then you argue that Tough Tusk and Bronze Warden are different in the side argument. Right? You see the logic pattern of how our arguments went? So not only is that side argument tangentially related to the main argument, but you also undercut your own side argument for Bronze Warden, because Bronze Warden and Tough Tusk is very different in the side argument, but it's more similar. I mean, it's identical as a bridge. The side argument is whether it's necessary. The starting base argument that you pitched, that I thought you were making more of a point then is whether it's a bridge or not. And I thought you meant it to be a bridge in a particular. I didn't think the analogy ended with they're both bridges. I thought it was more specific to the play pattern. But you've clarified now that you just meant that it was a bridge, like all the other bridges in the game. And
Okay.
so that's why everything we've said has not contradicted each other, except for the side argument, which is totally contradictory. I think you're undercutting yourself.
What is the side argument?
Whether it's
'Cause
necessary, whether the bridge is necessary for the Caligos or for the Quillboar later game.
you mean a bridge or
No,
the
the bridge,
specific
the
thing that
specific
we're
bridge,
talking about?
the specific bridge.
Okay, and you're saying that Tough Tusk is necessary for Quillboars.
No, I'm not saying it's necessary for Quillboars.
Okay.
But you started off saying, okay, you know what? Let's drop it. You started off. I thought you started off saying that Bronze Warden is necessary for Caligos, and then you undercut that by saying it's not necessary.
Yeah, I'm saying
Because
something
you repeatedly said you don't take the Caligos if you don't have Bronze Warden, right? They said that like 3 times.
Okay, I thought you would understand by me also introducing like the Twilight Emissary. I'm like, you just need these things, right? Like you can also substitute it with like, okay, now because you had like some dragon, there's Razor Gore, right? And now you're incentivized to take the Razor Gore,
Right.
and
I
because
mean,
you have
I
the Razor
understand
Gore,
what bridges are. You just meant
Mhm.
at a very basic level that it's a bridge, like all the other bridges for all the other
Mhm.
tribes in the game. I thought initially that you meant something more specific with the analogy. Because I think as far as bridges go, Tough Tusk is about as far of a bridge like as you can get from Bronze Warden. Like I think it's the exact other kind of bridge. They're both bridges. They both function as a, but basically the bridge that you're looking for is good independent earlier game unit that you can build upon, right? So yes, but past that, almost all the other bridges that exist in the game for other tribes function more closer to Tough Tusk than Bronze Warden does.
All right, tier 3 units.
We
Uh,
haven't done tier 2 units yet, but I want to talk about Tough Tusk because I don't think we've talked about Tough Tusk itself. And this is the most important unit in the early game for Quillboars, and that is that like you have to keep buffing it. Like precondition to it being better than your average tier 2 unit is that you have to keep getting blood gems and then putting a divine shield on it each turn, so it will grow, right? Like that's what I think that's what makes it stand apart from other things. It makes it more like Salty Looter in that it will necessarily grow. Whenever you have a Quillboar that generates it, this thing will grow, and it is on curve when you're getting it. So it's very easy in order for it to grow. And your synergies doesn't just work with Tough Tusk. The next minion, the Prophet of the Boar, which is still tier 2, that we haven't really talked about and is not a very good unit, is tier 2 3/3 that says once per turn after you play a Quillboar, gain a blood gem. So you start having that's your first Quillboar synergy specific. Although if you look at Tough Tusk, blood gems only come from Quillboars, so that's technically another Quillboar synergy. So you start having these early tier 2 kind of roundabout Quillboar synergies on units that are Tough Tusk being a good unit and Prophet of the Boar being a not particularly good unit. But you start having these synergies. Like Quillboars, more than most tribes, really loop you into their whole system in the early going, and you start getting this tempo benefit by going Quillboars as early as tier 2. I think that really makes it stand apart from other tribes. Right? Like, what other tribes does this? Like Party Rock?
kind of. Yeah. All right. So, did you want to say anything more about Prophet of the Boar? Or
No. It's just, I mean, do you think it's a good unit? It looks like a crappy unit to me.
yeah, it's not great. It's one of those where it's got a specific window where you could buy it on turn, 3 or 4. You use it for a few turns because the 3/3, like you're still trying to fill up your board, and you just get some extra blood gems because you're playing Quillboars for the next few turns, and then you get rid of it. You sell it
Mm-hmm.
immediately. So it's a little bit similar to that tier 3/3/3 that gives you a gold when it dies, where it gives you a benefit for a certain amount of turns, and then you just get rid of it. That's it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's got that certain window where it's fine, um, but Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Wolfman, which is now also a 3/3. You get some stats out of it. The Wolfman has better tempo. This has better permanent stats. Like, no
Yeah.
one's going to say it's a great card. But if you're doing something relating to it, right? Like, it helps you create that network thing.
Yep. Okay. Tier 3 units, we have 4 of them. All right.
4 tier 3 units. All right, let's go through all of it. This is the core of Quillboars. Like, Quillboars is a very tempo heavy. Like, you saw how it's already network synergy on tier 2. And tier 3 has 4 units, which is tied or probably even more than the most units. Does anyone else have 4 on tier 3? I don't think anyone else has 4. But I haven't like looked into
I'd
it.
have to think about it. Yeah.
But this is the core of when you're just gonna start seeing lots of Quillboars. Bristleback Brute, 3/3 Quillboar. The first blood gem played on this each turn gives an extra +3/+3. So, okay. Next one, Banner Boar, 2/5. At the end of your turn, play a blood gem on adjacent Quillboar. So even on the turn you play it, it gets an extra +1/+1 on something. Next, Thorncaller, 4/3. Battlecry and Death Rattle gain a blood gem. So it's a 5/4 on the turn if you play it on itself. Or you can, if you have a better unit to buff, you can buff that. And Death Rattle happens each time it dies, so it'll repeatedly generate. And Necrolite. Necrolite is another 3/3. Battlecry, choose a friendly minion. It steals all blood gems from its neighbors. So more of a use once later on kind of card than an actual tier 3 card.
Pretty good. Tier 3 is when you look and you see that, Quillboars have quite a lot going for them. So Bristleback Brute is the perfect example of just getting more stats than you should. Quillboars, the reason why blood gems are a resource is, as you can see, there's already quite a few units that you want to use your blood gems on. You want to use it on the road board to gain its frenzy effect to get more blood gems. You want to use it on the Tough Tusk because you want the divine shield, but Tough Tusk, you're actually using it up and he's not like helping you generate it. Bristleback Brute, well, you really want to play on this guy because you get extra stats. Banner Boar is such a good card.
So good.
So good. I mean, if you think about how good Iron Sensei is now that he's on tier 3, Banner Boar, you need 2 other Quillboars, but if you're playing Quillboars, that should be fine. He's got more stats than an Iron Sensei, and you choose which Quillboars you want to put it on in case you have like quite a few of them. We've all gone through the situation where the Iron Sensei just keeps on buffing the non-divine shielded unit, or not your Deflecto bot. So Banner Boar is the one that you look at and you're like, wow, this is the mid game, the early mid game beef right here. Banner Boar is going to carry. Thorncaller is really freaking good, gaining a blood gem immediately, which makes this into a 5/4. And then Death Rattle, you're gaining blood gems. And as we see, blood gems for Quillboars are much more than just +1/+1, especially later on. Like in the early game, it's like, oh, I just get a divine shield, or I just do this, I just do that. Blood gems are really, really useful. Necrolite is the interesting one that kind of reaches out and says, well, you don't have to just be Quillboars. Like at a certain point, Quillboars can turn themselves. It's sort of like that Vol'jin effect. You can expand into something else a little bit and cash in, which is really interesting because Quillboars, as you see, they can buff themselves a huge amount, much more flexible than demons can with Wrathweavers and everything. And then Necrolite says, well, here's kind of this Vol'jin effect, and you want to cleave, have a cleave. That's something that Quillboars don't passively have. So the tier 3 units are the ones in which you look at it and you're like, wow, Quillboars are going to be quite good in the mid game.
Yep. I mean, these are all tempo units besides the Necrolite. The thing with the Bristleback Brute is you don't want to take it unless you already have a blood gem or an ability to generate a blood gem, because it's very low in stats. And the fact that if you can play a blood gem on it, let's say you get it the next turn, then you get a 6/6, but you're 1 turn delayed and you have to use a 3/3 for 1 turn, kind of evens it out. And you can only buff it. Yeah, it's a 7/7, but you would have gotten, like, you have to generate that +1/+1 of value from somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So the 6/6 of stats evens out with the 3/3 of bad stats compared to other tier 3. Now, if this is your only choice because your other choices are like tier 2 stuff, sure, right? You're always going to end up with weird kind of like stuff because it's a limited game format and a lot of randomness. But this is not something that you're like, oh yes, I have a Bristleback Brute. I want to go Quillboars. I'm going to put this into my lineup specifically. It's even worse if you already have a Tough Tusk, and that's the reason why you want to go to Quillboars, because Tough Tusk needs to be fed blood gems. So you're already in a blood gem deficit. You're basically, with Quillboars, you will always feel like you're kind of in a blood gem deficit, because you always want more blood gems because they always do more stuff, and it's actually kind of expensive to generate blood gems. So at least as you're leveling up, like, watch out. I feel like Bristleback Brute is kind of a trap, where it's good only if you already have a setup, not as a way to lead the setup, and it conflicts with your other guy, the Tough Tusk, which is a better setup, and better in the late game too. So that's just one thing I wanted to highlight. But yeah, Banner Boar, amazing. Thorn Caller, good, like really good for its level. Although I'm sure eventually you'll want to send it away for a better Quillboar. All right.
Okay.
Tier 4. Still gas to the pedal, right? 3 tier 2s, 4 tier 3s, and 3 tier 4s. Dynamic Duo is the first Quillboar. It is a 5/6 taunt. After a blood gem is played on another Quillboar, gain +1/+1. So self-growing mechanic. Bonker is a 4/7 Wind Fury. After this attacks, gain a blood gem. So if it attacks once, survives, and it'll attack again, and it'll get 2 blood gems on the very first battle. Ground Shaker is the last tier 4 one. It is a 2/6. After a blood gem is played on this, give your minions +2 attack for next combat only. So this will really potentially buff your entire board for the next turn.
Yeah. The ones that you really want to look out here, well, you really want to look at Dynamic Duel and also Bonker. These are the ones that continue the scaling. So something like Ground Shaker is, we've seen this before. It's another like tier 4 unit in which you're like, oh, we give you some stats, but it doesn't really provide scaling. And Ground Shaker is fine, but tier 4, and at the point in which you're either tripling into tier 4 or finding tier 4s, you really want to focus on the scaling. This is when everyone is trying to focus on scaling, and you should be too. You devoting stuff, quote, just to tempo for the upcoming battle. Sometimes you'll have to do it. It's fine. I'm not saying it's like bad and you should never take it. You're going to take it sometimes, and it'll be fine sometimes. But you have to use a blood gem on that one in order to just get the attack. This is one in which later in the game, this thing doesn't have like, Divine Shield. This thing doesn't have anything special. +2 attack for next combat in the late game sucks. So it's like, it's good when you get it, but it doesn't help you get to the late game. But Dynamic Duel, giving you passive stats for doing something you were going to do anyways. Bonker, giving you that blood gem, and when you're getting it, like the first couple turns once you have it, it should attack twice. It really should, because the 7 health is enough, and getting 2 blood gems and a decent tempo unit like Bonker, that's pretty great. So I'm loving this curve. I'm loving this progression that Quillboars have right now, in terms of them having good stats, good synergies, decent amount of scaling on tier 3 into tier 4. That just makes sense.
Yeah, remember the Blackthorne? Blackthorne is his name, the hero, Death Speaker Blackthorne. That is Omu, but with blood gems. Blizzard kind of values blood gems if you're playing a Quillboar build, the same as a mana, not a coin, but a mana. So these blood gems that are being generated by Bonker are really, really freaking important. Um, they're very, very valuable, and a 4/7 is pretty good stats to start with. Like, just wanted to highlight the value exchange here. It's very good. Dynamic duo, good beefy unit that grows. Ground shaker, I don't really understand because you're dealing with Quillboars. Everything's getting +1/+1. It's not like you have a way to just add health without adding attack, and all of them are, with the exception of Bonker a little bit, and obviously Bannerboard, they're all kind of even in stats. So you're going to like the attack just really doesn't matter that much, and for it to be not permanent, I feel like Ground Shaker is meant to, because it also says give your minions +2 attack, right? Like not your Quillboars. I feel like it's meant to be some sort of like a backup kind of like, oh, I'm doing a kind of a weird build, or like I get sucked into it, or maybe I have a bunch of divine shields or cleaves in the mid game, and I need a little tempo boost. I feel
So
like it's
niche,
not,
so
yeah,
specific,
like it's not a
so specific.
Quillboar thing.
No, and it's +2 attack. It's very weird. Yeah, and if you're playing something else as well, even when you buy this, your goal is to sell it the very next turn.
Yeah, and you have to waste your blood gems on this, so it's like I don't know.
Yep. So this is the odd man out. Ground Shaker is just a weird one. I wouldn't be surprised if this one were changed eventually or something. But Dynamic Duel and Bonker are quite good for Quillboars. And then we got the tier fives.
Tier
We got three tier
fives,
fives.
three more tier fives. This is like Quillboars just keep coming. There's a lot of Quillboars. So by now, if you're going Quillboars, you're already pretty set up. You have the whole system going. It's decent tempo compared to anything else that you can set up. And Bristleback Knight comes in. It is a 4/8 Wind Fury Divine Shield. Frenzy. Gain Divine Shield. So it has potential double Divine Shield on each turn. Which if you play mechs, you know that even triggering it once is pretty damn good, and triggering it twice, getting 2 additional Divine Shield is often game winning for mechs. So this doesn't quite get there, but it gets you most of the way to what mechs are absolutely best for. So that's good. And remember, you get to buff this pretty easily because you have a lot of blood gems. Then the Gemma Thorn Curse, which is a 3/6 Quillboar. After a blood gem is played on this, give a friendly minion of each minion type +1/+1. So you're not a full Quillboar comp. And finally, you have Gammagone, the Great Boar, which has awesome art. It is a 6/6 beast. That is not a Quillboar, but it is a beast, because it is just a boar, not a Quillboar. And its text is, your blood gems give an extra +1/+1.
Yeah. Tier 5 is interesting. So first of all, we have the tempo tier 5, which we should expect. Tier 5 has some great tempo units and some great scaling units. So like we seeing something like Bristleback Knight just makes sense, right? You have Sneed's Old Shredder, which is one of the biggest tempo units, and it's a mech unit. We have that Wind Fury Pirate as well, big tempo unit. So Bristleback Knight just falls into that same category. It's quite good. It's immediately something that you really want to buff. Like you want to buff immediately. And then you want to put this next to your banner boars. You want to start buffing this guy up because he's going to carry you into the late game. The Thorn Curse, the Agam Thorn Curse, is interesting. He's a menagerie hero. He's like actually a menagerie hero. Whereas what this guy allows you to do is play that like half and this will happen sometimes where you're like half Quillboars and half something else, right? Just out of necessity, and
And,
then you can pick up a Thorn Curse. You're like, oh, that's fine.
and
Or if
remember, you have a Necrolite that
yeah,
exists. So you can use blood gems very efficiently, and you can buff that cleave unit, which is a very menagerie thing.
yeah, exactly. This is the Necrolite gives you that kind of out. It gives you that escape into an actual menagerie, and it's like all these buffs that you've had. Well, they don't have to stay on this particular unit, right? For example, you buffing that Bristleback Brute, and you just getting those stats. Well, you can switch it with the with the Necrolite at a certain point, and then suddenly, you buffing up the Brute, you switching it with the Necrolite, and then you have this Thorn Curse, like just buffing everything. That's good. You started off as just Quillboars, and then you became a Quillboar menagerie kind of thing. So yeah, Quillboars give you an out of kind of the pure tribe, which is weird. Like you typically don't have that. You typically don't have tribes that are just like, by the way, if you would like to cash out some of your Quillboar stock and put some into like beasts or dragons, you may go ahead.
Yeah, and that's what the Great Boar does. Your blood gems give an extra +1/+1. Super, literally doubles the effectiveness of your Quillboar build. But it's a beast. So if you also even add just one more, like, other, like, tribe, let's say a cleave or something, that you can also ship blood gems onto pretty easily to kind of catch up if you need to do it later on. Well, now all of a sudden you have 3 tribes, which is enough for Menagerie to start working.
Yeah, so this is where after you get the Thorn Curse, you buying um, all these generators like the Sun Bacon Relaxer, right? That's huge value. I see. I like to think Victor was also thinking of the huge value he can get in late game with the Sun Bacon Relaxer, but it was just hashtag mood for him. He looked at Sun Bacon Relaxer. He's like, that's a whole mood right there, and that's how he picked. But this is where we can see with these tier 4, tier 5 units that Sun Bacon Relaxer is super duper clutch in scaling, just like with the Elemental, how Elemental is decent tempo, great econ, amazing scaling when you have the right units. Sun Bacon Relaxer is very much so the same.
Yeah, so one thing about tier 5, if you notice, is none of them have anything really to do with Quillboars. Like, I mean, they have stuff to do with Quillboars, obviously. They're Quillboar or Quillboar adjacent, but they're Menagerie cards, and Bristleback Knight is like your end game big card for Quillboars. Like, big beefy thing. If you want to buff something, you want to buff the Bristleback Knight. That is your double Divine Shield unit. It is the designated unit that you want to buff and move things onto, as far as Quillboars go, if you're not extending into other things. So a pure Quillboar kind of game ends at tier 4. And then you triple up, and you try to triple up into some Bristleback Knight, maybe. But that's where Quillboars end, on tier 4. Past this, and that's what I said before, like when comparing to like Calicos, one of the differences between Quillboars and most other tribes is Quillboars end on 4. Super early. No other tribe ends that early. You'll see other things, like there's still 2 more tier 6 cards we haven't covered, and they're good.
Elementals end on 4.
Okay. Elementals also end on 4, sadly.
Demons end on 4.
Okay, that's true. Demons do end on 4, actually.
There's quite like elementals and demons kind of just end on 4.
I mean, elementals shouldn't end on 4. Demons are actually designed to kind of end on 4, which is a different thing. But yes, okay. So you should think of Quillboars kind of like demons. Like, you don't start on turn 1. You gather a lot of but you gather more of your things in like that early mid game area. Whereas Demon starts early game, but this is like a very tempo-based class. Now, unlike Demons, there's a lot of outs built into this if you want to go further. Like, that's what Tier 5 is all about. And you're going to see in Tier 6, they're just generally good units that are not amazing, but good enough. So let's move on to Tier 6. Tier 6 has 2 minions. It is Chariga and Captain Flattusk. Chariga is a 7/7 Quillboar. At the end of your turn, play a blood gem on all friendly minions. So +1/+1 on everything is pretty good, but it has to, like, if you're not Quillboars, you have to end your turn with it. So it's something that you may have in your hand in the late game, and you just, like, swap it in your buffing position, right? And then you get an extra buff out of it, and it's decent. If you are actually Quillboars, this is obviously good. A lot of things trigger on you playing Blood Gems on it. So, like, this is also a end game. Like, this is as close to, like, the end game Quillboar as you're going to get. But if you compare this to something like Caligos, the scaling is not comparable, right? Like, the scaling is literally just +1/+1 on everything.
Yeah, look, Chiriga, as you say, yeah, it's not great if you're not playing Quillboars, because like the thing is, like, Quillboars, you want to have other things that can like trigger based on blood gems being played on them, that have other benefits. This thing just comes like at a weird kind of interesting, almost like a little bit late. And if you're not playing Quillboars, it's +1/+1 everything, which is like okay, I guess. But we have Lightfang that does a lot more than that and gets the diversity that you want if you're not playing Quillboars. So it's like, But the next one I think is quite good.
Yeah. So this is one that, like, if you're comparing with Lightfang, right? Like, Lightfang obviously better for Menagerie, but this technically works with everything else. Like, it's something you're going to be aware of, like, when you're playing other tribes at tier 6, as something that you could potentially buy and end the turn with on your open slot. So I think that's interesting. Like, a lot of these, starting on tier 5, I just view them as kind of neutral units. Like, they do have a Quillboar tag. If your Quillboars do get up here, you triple into stuff, you can take advantage of it, but it's interesting. Like, they created some more outs for Quillboars after 4, when the class really ends at 4 with 1 card at 5. Captain Flat Tusk is a 9/6 Quillboar. After you spend 3 gold, gain a blood gem.
It's pretty good, man. Look, you're gonna spend gold. You want to get those blood gems, because at this point, blood gems are quite valuable. Like, at this point, you're rolling, right? Like, you got the Great Boar, you got the Thorn Curse. Your Tough Tusk is huge, and you want to keep feeding it Divine Shields. So you want that like additional engine, and this thing just says, all right, well, just buy stuff, do whatever, roll whatever you want, just get those blood gems. The funny thing is, you always want to look at how things synergize, right? How things synergize with the game, not just not just the tribe itself. And this is Adulta's worst nightmare: how to make APM pirates even more APM. Okay.
Or how to make any other thing that was not APM into APM, because this thing's good on anything that cleaves anything with Divine Shield. Like, you could throw this into anything.
Like, you can use it on whatever. Like, the super kind of the super potential, or the super combo, is now that if you do have the Hoggers, if you're able to go infinite with that. The problem you always had with that pirate is like, okay, well, hopefully you're able to buy enough of those pirates, the 4/3 pirates that buffs other pirates. But what if you're not full pirates, right? What if you're not full pirates, or you have the salty, you don't get enough of the 4/3s, blah blah blah. This helps solve that, because you get all these blood gems, so you can spam blood gems while buying pirates and everything. It's one of those things where I think, if we're thinking about it in terms of Quillboars, it's fine. It's the engine that we need, because there's these infinite chains possible in BGs right now. Adding something to a potential infinite chain, I'm not so sure about. I don't know. Like, and if the justification is it's infinite anyway, so why don't, like, it doesn't hurt as much to add more? I'm not sure about that one either.
Like, if you're Quillboars, you are not trying to reach Captain Flat Tusk. You may think, oh, it's more blood gems, it's so good for Quillboars. It's not. No Quillboar synergize with more blood gems being played on them, except for one, and that gets a +1/+1 bonus. The even better synergy is the Great Boar, and that's a beast. So you are in definite menagerie territory if you want to get Captain Flattusk to actually get like a huge, significant, a ton of value.
Well, what you want is you want the Thorn Curse with the Flat Tusk. You want to say, I'm just going to use gold, and whatever it is, I'm going to buff like everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You want to get like a more menagerie, at least like a partial menagerie, like a three tribe menagerie going, where Quillboar is one of your tribe, Beast is one of your other tribes, and your third tribe preferably cleaves, right? Like either mechs or well, you know, your beast can be with the Great Boar as well, because that's a beast. So that's how this is a menagerie card, or just kind of a general support card to other tribes. If you're going pure Quillboars, none of this is worth it. Like nothing past your Bristleback Knight is worth your time and worth your gold to upgrade that high into this. Like Chiriga, playing 1 blood gems on all of your friendly minions at the end, it's probably as good, if not better, as Captain Flattusk for a real Quillboar build. And it's not all that great. Like, it's fine. But your tier 6 options for pure Quillboar builds are very lacking, I think, compared to tier 6 in most other tribes that actually have stuff on tier 6. But they exist for a reason, right? They exist because they're not just Quillboar cards. They exist because they're really menagerie cards, and they happen to be of the Quillboar tribe. So it's a very interesting design decision. I think it's good, like objectively speaking, I think it's a good design decision for early tribes to end like this, so that you do have stuff that can do stuff. If you somehow find it, you know, because it's just really, really convenient for you to level, or like the game just goes on for like a really long time, you do have more stuff you can do. So you're not just purely dead in the water if you're facing another, you know, small scaling kind of build. But your goal for Quillboars should be like demons, right? Like low. And I guess elementals, although that's really a design flaw in elementals rather than, because what do you do? Like compare this to the tier 6 elementals, right? They do nothing. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you're not buying any of those. Whereas here, these are designed for you to play menagerie with. So yeah, your Quillboars shouldn't be going up here, but they're not looking for it, right? That's not the goal. So these are excellently designed cards, I think. I don't know about the balance. It's kind of hard to predict all this, but they'll eventually be balanced and be interesting in the meta. Whereas, like we talked about with elementals before, some of those tier 6 ones may need to just be redesigned.
Okay, that's Quillboars. A lot of people aren't so excited about Bananas 2.0. I think Quillboars are definitely going to be at least decent when they come out. You just look at all the possibilities they have and all the units period they have, and like, you know, they ground shaker or ground breaker, that, like, you know, that's one that's like weird. You're like, okay, well, it's on tier 4, but I don't exactly really want that. But for most of Quillboars, like, you want, like, you're happy to just see all of these units. They work with each other fairly well to some capacity. There's a decent amount of generation for blood gems. There's good pop-off potential for quite a few of these units, decent scaling. So I think it's going to be decent. Like, this is going to be one of those tribes where I don't exactly know. I can't tell you exactly from the meta, it's like how everything's going to shake out. But just looking at what they have at their disposal, it's like, man, it's really tough to see how Quillboars are going to be bad. You know, like I don't think they can be actually bad.
I think end game they are designed to be bad. Right, like you get to the end game with this
Pure Quillboars,
yeah, Quillboar. Like compare pure Quillboars with like pure demons, for example. Like I think Quillboars just aren't going to match up, and demons even start earlier, so to get more security into the end game. So Quillboars are really designed, like it's so easy to get into Quillboars, and it's also easy to get out of Quillboars. And I think that's kind of what they're going for. I don't even think of Quillboars as a tribe so much as like extension of neutral, because they also don't do stuff. You know, like the reason Bananas 2.0 is not exciting to people is because it's a very neutral feeling mechanic. It literally is a neutral mechanic. That's what bananas do. And you can put bananas on non-Quillboars, and it is totally fine, right? Like, you are at most getting double your value by putting it on Quillboars. At most, and usually not even that. So, this tribe just plays very friendly with all the other tribes, and that's how it's designed. So if you're trying to go down a pure Quillboar route, just don't expect to place high. Like, it's a taunt comp kind of deal that's happening here. And you can get out of it easier than with taunt comps, I think. And they're probably going to remove taunt comps at some point soon. I feel like taunt comps have more than overstayed its welcome. But for a while, you're going to have taunt comps in the game. You're going to have Quillboars in the game. And it's going to be very tempo heavy and very menagerie favorable. Just in this comp, like the Caligoses, they're not going to happen.
All right, so that's it for Quillboars. It's going to come out on Tuesday. I think everyone is super duper excited for just new stuff. I will be playing it nonstop, like for, I want to say, like the next month or so. So for those of you who are very happy that I returned to Arena and played a lot, it won't happen for a while. I'm just going to be spamming BGs because new content, and let's face it, I don't think they're going to do much for Arena in the near future. So it's back to BGs for me.
Yeah, I'm going to check out Quillboars on Wednesday. And then probably go back to the Arena on Friday, and then I'll see what's more interesting to me. I'm definitely going to go back to the Arena whenever they do a micro adjust, though. Like, I think the Arena meta is still very like healthy at the top, and I have fun with Arena. I don't think I'm going to go full BGs, but I might do a little bit of BGs going forward, at least until the Arena gets balanced again. Then I'll do Arena for a while, and then we'll see. It could also, they're adding so many, like whenever they do this BG edition, they're changing so many things. Like, the meta could also just really suck very quickly, very fast, right? So, never say never. But at the very least, I think I'm going to be playing at least arenas half the time. All right, that is it. This has been a really long podcast. We had so much stuff to cover. Before we go, I just want to do one more really quick question from the Go type of things, because we've been talking about Pokemon Snap a lot, especially if you follow us outside of the Lightforge podcast. It is out. Go freaking get it. It is so freaking good. Like, if you care about Pokemon at all, or if you had any good experiences with the old Pokemon Snap, this is just better. I know it's $60, but trust me, there is enough content for it. This is not a slim game. This is a very long game, and the animations are great.
It's very fun. Very fun. It is a great non-game. Some people like to call it that. Where
it's a game, okay? Like, Steins Gate is a non-game. This is a game. You have to aim, you have to do things, you have to trigger things, your skills are tested, you have to aim, right? The camera is just an aiming system.
Yeah, it does test your skill. Timing, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you figure stuff out, but you do have to like have some quick reflexes and snap. So yeah, it's very fun. I definitely recommend it as well. I think they nailed the personality of the Pokemon. Mm-hmm. In every environment, you look at the Pokemon and you're like, oh, it makes sense that this thing would be here. Like, it makes sense that this thing would be here. It makes sense that this thing would be doing what it's doing. And that's really what Snap is about, because the main Pokemon games are about Pokemon's interactions with human beings, mm-hmm. as in battling, and also like out in the wilderness and how you interact with them in terms of battling or capturing them. But Pokemon Snap is about how Pokemon are just like you're the fly on the wall,
which in my opinion is much more interesting, because we know what humans are and what humans do, but like they have much more creativity like in the Pokemon world. Beyond 2P in chat says, AIM, Oddwick thinks Pokemon Snap is a first-person shooter game. It is. Like,
It is.
it's a casual first-person shooter game and a single-player one, but it definitely is. You're literally pointing and snapping, and they're grading you on how accurate you are at getting the headshots. Like, it literally is a first-person shooter game. It's probably more rigorous than a lot of first-person shooter games in the fact that they actually tell you how close you are every single hit to the exact dead center of the thing you're trying to hit.
Yeah. But it is very fun. It's a great experience. Get it if you like the first one at all. Definitely get it. Like I feel super confident recommending it. For other people, I can see how for some people it's not their cup of tea because not everyone will like this game style. But for what this is, it's like a rail shooter, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's
a rail
literally a rail
shooter.
shooter. It's a
Mhm.
rail shooter slash kind of puzzle game.
Yeah, it's a small puzzle game, rail shooter, and it's very very fun. Like they inject a lot of personality into it because they know that for a lot of people, what they want to just see is the cool interactions with the Pokemon, and they nailed that. So go out, get that,
Get the
play that,
game. Uh,
play play Boars.
Yeah, I will say, Brand New thought she was not gonna enjoy the game too much, and she's like obsessed with it. Started her own account, did like all the whatever stuff. Like this is a game that it gets you right. If you're interested in Pokemon at all, too, it just gets you. It's getting me back into like Pokemon because it has a lot of like new gen Pokemon as well that I have no interest in. But then I'm seeing them in Pokemon Snap, and I'm like, these are actually kind of interesting. So we'll see. But yeah, just excellent game. If you think you like have 25% chance to be interested in this game, you will be actually 95% chance actually interested in this game. It is that good. I think it deserves better than an 80 on Metacritic, which is its current critic score. Like I think they lowballed the score, like on the fears that people don't like this type of gameplay or whatever. But like, it's hard for me to. I mean, they could have made it better, but that would be the difference between like an A and an A plus. Like I don't think it's an A plus game, but it's definitely a solid A game. All right.
Okay.
That's it for us. This is the Lightforge podcast. We will be back next week with probably a very BG focused one on how Quillboars are breaking down in Battlegrounds. Until then, this is Adwicta.
Zmerp, see you guys.